Today, I'm going to get you really excited. If you're struggling with your driving or you've lost confidence in it, this two-part video series is going to show you exactly what to do to improve it. My goal today is to transform your driving by building a proper setup. Let's get started. Now, what I want to do in this video is show you what you need to do to become really successful at driving. One of the little known facts about using your driver is when you're hitting the golf ball, you actually hit it in the middle of the golf ball, the equator of it. So if your club face is open or closed, it will send your drives offline. So the first thing that we have to make sure that we're doing correctly is to align our club face properly. Now, a lot of people get it wrong and they use the top edge of the driver rather than the bottom edge. Now, if you use the top edge, you'll actually close the club face. So I'm just going to put this alignment tool against the face. So if I straighten the top up and I made that straight, my drive is actually pointing to the left. So a lot of people struggle because they don't align the face up correctly. So the very first thing that we have to do is make sure that your golf club face is pointing where you want the ball to start. So I've just demonstrated club face alignment. Now what I want to do is go through the different parts of the setup, because once that's correct, it makes hitting the golf ball so much easier. So one of the first things we have to get right is ball position. So what I've done here is I've got an alignment rod which is going to demonstrate exactly where you need to use it. Now, it is variable depending on your mobility, but I'm going to give you a really perfect guideline. So with a driver, think of the golf swing as a big circle. There's a bottom to the circle and then it starts to lift back up again. Because we tee the ball up with the driver, we don't actually want to hit the golf ball at the bottom of the circle. We want to hit it as the club is starting to rise. So what we have to do fundamentally is move the ball towards your lead foot in the setup rather than in the center of the stance. So what I've got here is an alignment rod that's just a guideline to show you a great place for the ball to be positioned. Now, I quite like it to be opposite my left heel. But what's really important is if you have the ball positioned forward, you don't want to lean forward, but I'll get into that in just a second. So the ball position now is further forward in the stance than it would be with an iron.
I didn't know that about the arc. That's really interesting. Does everybody know that?
No, some do, but not everybody does yet. You're aiming the club face correctly, you have the ball positioned correctly in your stance. Now we need to know how wide our stance should be. Very, very simple. All it is a natural stride and then turn to face the golf ball, because that's your natural balance point. What I would avoid with driver is to have a stance that's too wide, because your base will become too solid and you won't be able to move your body correctly. And I would avoid having your stance too narrow, because again, you're not going to be able to use your body as efficiently as you're able to. So use this as a quick guide, a natural stride, turn to face the golf ball, and you'll never be a million miles off. So the next thing we have to get right is the distance from the golf ball. And this can be achieved through a really good posture routine. So let me demonstrate what a poor posture would look like and what a good one would look like. So one thing that I see a lot of golfers doing is standing too far away from the golf ball with the driver. If you're too far away, your balance is compromised, your weight will be too much towards your toes, and this will stop you swinging the golf club as efficiently as you can. So if you're stretching for the golf ball and your arms are on a very similar angle to the shaft of the golf club, this is not correct. But now I'm going to show you a routine to get it correct every time. So what I'm going to do is deliberately stand nice and tall, hold my golf club as naturally as possible, and I'm going to hold my arms out in front and then relax them onto my body. So what I'm not doing is holding the shaft parallel to the ground. I want it a slight angle from here, so it becomes really relaxed. What we're going to do now is we're going to keep your back straight and your legs straight, and we're going to bend forward from your hip joint. So it's arms resting on my body first, bend forward from your hips until the club hits the floor. Once it's hit the floor, we then just relax the knees. So I'm not bending them and I'm not keeping them locked up straight. I'm going arms, hips, relax my knees. Now what you'll see from here is my golf club is too far away from the golf ball. The worst thing you can do now is push your arms to the golf ball because this is now affecting your posture again. So if we follow the same routine, just nudge your feet to the golf ball. Now you're going to be the perfect distance every time. The position you're in now is one where you could hold a heavy weight and your weight is distributed from toe to heel right in the center. So it almost feels like somebody could push you down into the ground and you're rock solid. If your weight's on your toes, you're going to have an issue in the backswing. If your weight's on your heels, you're also going to have a problem in the downswing. So let's just follow this simple routine to get you the right distance every time. So there's two more things that we need to get right in the setup. I'm going to show you the golden nugget right at the end. The next thing we have to get right is alignment. So alignment consists of where your body is aligned. Now most golfers just think about their toe alignment, but there's a bit more to it than that. This outer line here is what's called my ball to target line. That's where we want the club face pointing. At no point in the golf setup should my body be aligned to my target. And the reason for that is because we're set a distance away from the golf ball, everything should be parallel to your ball to target line. If I start pointing my body towards a target here, I'm going to be offline. I'm going to hit the shots very much to the right, or I could turn the club face over and hit them to the left. That's a compromised position. So I love to use these alignment rods as a guide. So my toe line is nice and parallel to this one, but there's more to it than that. We also need your knee alignment, your hip alignment, and your shoulder alignment all to be parallel with this one. Now, because the golf ball is positioned further forward in your stance, it's very easy for the shoulders to start to point off to the left, and that's because the ball is further forward in the stance. So again, it's really important to make sure your whole body is aligned parallel to your ball to target line. So using these alignment rods is a brilliant way of checking it. And what's really important if you're out on the range or you're in a studio like this where you're practicing is make sure you video your golf swing. So you might see an issue with the golf swing, but you can also spot the setup. So use your video camera to set up correctly to the golf ball.
And that might feel really uncomfortable, wouldn't it? Because if once you aligned it, it might start, you know, prompting some different feelings in your body if you've not been aligning correctly before.
You couldn't be more correct, Joe. So easy for people to get comfortable in their setup, but comfortable isn't always correct. Correct is correct. So checking these things is fundamental to being successful with your driver.
And then I wonder how many times it takes to practice it for it to become a habit. A few times.
Thousands of times, I would say. But what you want to do is make this habitual. This needs to become your new habit. You can't guess where you're setting up with the driver. Do it correctly. It's a shortcut to doing it much better. So another thing that's fundamental to being good at driving is making sure your tee height is correct. As a guideline, what we're looking for is half the ball above the top of the golf club. So if I place my driver down behind this golf ball, we're looking for half of it to be above the top of the driver. And the reason for that is because we're actually hitting it as the club works upwards, and then we'll hit it in the middle of the club face.
That's a really, really good bit of advice again, though. I think that's brilliant. It's a really, really easy way to remember how, because I could never remember how high to put my tee. I think that's a really good bit of advice, thank you.
Yeah, and you can have preset tee heights, but if you're like me and you like to use a wooden tee, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, it's a really good guide, and you can use the lines on your golf ball to judge it.
Oh, that's brilliant, thank you.
So as promised, here's the golden nugget when you're setting up with a driver, and it's to do with weight distribution. This is a fundamental part of setting up to the driver correctly. So I've done all the things correct. Now what we want to do is understand weight distribution. At setup, I want you to feel 60-40 favouring your back foot. The worst thing we can do with a driver is have all our weight on our front foot, because it's going to affect the angle that we hit the golf ball and it'll affect your backswing. So at setup, you could start off 50-50, and then I want you to slightly put your weight onto your back foot. The other thing that will happen from this, as a benefit from this, as you're putting your weight slightly backwards, your shoulders will start to point up slightly, which is a brilliant angle for them to start at address. Just to quickly demonstrate, I'm going to set up with a golf ball too low on the tee. I'm going to set up with a golf ball in the middle of my stance, and I'm going to have poor alignment. I'll hit a shot and let's see what happens. Oh, nightmare.
That's a very familiar place, I would say.
That's about as bad a drive as you'd ever want to hit. I just felt there was no way I can hit a good golf shot because my body alignment was so far offline. The ball position was right in the middle of the stance. The tee was way too low. I was just compromised from the get-go.
We've all been there.
So what I'll do now is I'll try and hit a good golf shot, just setting up correctly, just going through the things that we've just spoken about. So I've got the right height tee for me. I'm positioning the golf ball in the right place. I feel that my alignment's correct. My weight's distributed a little bit more to the right. I know we haven't spoke about the golf swing yet, but I've now got a chance to hit a drive. Oh, you would not believe that, would you? That was ripped as well.
It scared me to death in the back here. Jesus. Oh, blimey. That is straight down the line.
Not the best shot in the world, but it's in play and we're down the fairway.
I'm so glad that you do them here now, not at home. You know, when you used to hit the flipping lights.
Yeah. So to make real change, you need structure. At Proper Golfing, we've dedicated our time and knowledge to do this in a structured way. So in the library section, there's over 300 videos explaining everything from the setup to a full swing and all the other shots in between. Like chapters in a book, they're all set out correctly, so it's really easy to follow and to understand. So as an added benefit of being a member, you can also send in your swings for analysis, and you'll get a private invite to a Zoom meeting that we host every couple of weeks, where you'll meet all the members of Proper Golfing and we'll talk about all things golf. Thanks for watching. Remember, this is part one of a two-part series. So today we've just talked about the setup. The next one we're going to talk about applying the golf swing to that setup. As usual, like, share and comment, and if you want to get hold of us, the link's in the description below.